Alright, let's talk about hashes. So here we're at ruby.org and I'm going to go to core and look up a class called hash. Now hash is used quite a bit in Ruby and also in the Rails framework, and as you can see it has a lot of different functions over here. So some of these functions we're going to go over when we talk about iterators. But I think the best way to learn about hash is by example. So here, let's talk about how we create a hash. So we create a hash by putting a wiggly bracket. When we create arrays in Ruby, we do square bracket, right? But when we create a hash, we do this curly bracket, and we put key, and then we associate a value to that key. So coding is a string that's associated with a key called first name. And the keys are usually strings or symbols, which we'll explain just in a bit. Okay, so it works a lot like arrays. I can echo out, I can access the value of X, whose key is the first name. So this is going to return coding, and that's going to return Dojo. And this one just illustrates that X last name, that returns a string, so I can use this equal question mark function and pass a parameter Dojo. And this just reads, hey, print the statement if X last name is equal to Dojo. Okay, all right. So now that we can save it and we can run it, and it does print out what we expect it to print. So I'm going to echo that out, comment that out. Now instead of a string as a key, we can use symbol. And symbol is kind of like lightweight string, except that is not really. If you go to the documentation, you can also go to core and look up symbol, and you can read all about it. Okay, so it has some functions that you can associate, but the easiest way to think of a symbol is to consider it as an identity. Okay, so symbols are used quite a bit to represent a key, the keys in the hash. And so in this example we did colon, all symbols start with colon. So for the first name identity key, we're going to store the value coding, and in the last name key, we're going to store the value Dojo. And we can print out the values of y, and then access each value of that key by calling it like this. So if I save this and run it, it's going to say y is, and that's the value of y right now. That's the value of y, bracket, first name and last name and so forth. Okay. Now in hashes, so let's go back to hash. Okay, so when I go to hash, again, there are a lot of different functions, and some you will see repeated in multiple classes. And again, some of these we're going to cover in some of the next videos. But it has delete function that we talked about in the array, include question mark, merge to array to string. Let's just play around with the delete. So I can delete a key called first name, and then it changes the value of y. So if I run this, it's deleting first name, and now y doesn't have that key first name anymore. Okay, over here I just put two examples. Has key question mark is one of the method, has value is another method for the class hash, and it's used quite a bit, and it's good to know this. So if y has key first name, then print this. If it doesn't, then print that. If y has a value called Dojo, then also run this statement. So you can see if and else statement in action. Now again, if I run this, this is gonna run fine, and it's gonna have the results that we expect, but also just remember that in Ruby you actually don't need some of the brackets, some of the parentheses. So I can save this. If I run it, it's gonna run just fine. I think even with the delete function, you don't need it. So let's run it and see if that was true. And that is right. So sometimes without the parentheses, it may be confusing. You know, what is a parameter and how that parameter is getting passed, especially if you have, for example, if you're passing multiple value like that. But just remember that if some things are confusing, and if you're familiar with C or PHP or other languages where you have to put all of those, then just put the parentheses and see if it makes more sense to you. Alright, so go ahead and play around with this. Get familiar with symbols. Symbols are used quite a bit with hashes, and make sure that you understand the function has key, has value, delete, and understand how you can access different keys. And some other functions again we'll talk about in some of the next video.